Welcome, everybody, to another exciting issue of Nerdsplain It, a comic book podcast for every level of nerd. Don't forget, you can join in on all the fun on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, and you can be a patron of our art on our Patreon page, and that will give you exclusive access to content that nobody else gets that ain't paying for it. It's good to throw some money at us, and it makes us very happy as well. And don't forget, you can listen to us on, Apple Podcasts and what's that one? Spotify, that's the one I was thinking of. Google Play, anywhere you listen to podcasts, pretty much
in the bathroom?
Find us. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's Poople Play.
Poople Play.
Nice.
As always, the crew here, we have Greg. Greg, say hello to everybody.
What's going on, everyone?
Wookie.
Yo.
That I meant to say I keep using his real name, but we refer to him as Wookie, and at that point when I did that soft transfer, I think I just called him Juki.
Juki.
Well, and
Yes, the Jewish Wookie.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys have listened to the last few podcasts, but if anybody slips and says the real name, we just censor it with a Wookie sound.
Nice.
And speaking of which, that brings us to, speaking of people that make Wookie sounds, that brings us to Jess.
Hi, guys.
Jess doesn't make Wookie sounds. When she laughs really hard, she sounds like a Tusken Raider. And last but not least, we have hosts.
What's up?
I, of course, am Dave, the bombastic one that never shuts the fuck up. And today, we are diving into Venom.
And other symbiotes.
Venom and other symbiotes, yes, from the Marvel Comics universe. Why are we talking about Venom? Well, because Tom Hardy has a Venom movie coming out soon, and in all the trailers, he sounds like Christopher Walken. I noticed that the other day, actually. I went and saw The Predator, and they had a big screen preview for it. And every time I'd see the trailers, I thought to myself, God, I cannot put my finger on what he sounds like. And then I realized he sounded like Christopher Walken. Nevertheless, should be an interesting movie. It's part of the Sony Pictures universe. It's a partnership with Marvel, but not really. It's not on the same level as Spider-Man Homecoming. I know one of the producers for Venom said, to be part of the Spider-Man universe, and he was sitting right next to Feige, who turned and looked at him and went, you must be out your damn mind.
Yep.
Yeah, because I think they've gone ahead and said it's in the same world, but not the same universe. So I really need a fictional Neil deGrasse Tyson to break down the astronomy of a comic book universe.
Right, exactly, and that's so it's not part of the MCU, but I think the concept is that the world that Eddie Brock is going to live in, Spider-Man exists as he exists in the MCU, but he'll have no interaction with the MCU because they don't have the rights. They
at this time, probably.
At this time, yeah, I wish they would have shelled out the money for it.
Yeah.
What's up, Jess? You look like you were starting a sentence.
What is a symbiote?
What
Symbiote?
is a symbiote, or however they chose to pronounce it?
Yeah, what is the correct pronunciation?
Symbiote. Because the word isn't symbiosis.
Symbiosis?
I mean...
I do like how they went through and re-edited
Or
that trailer.
or a symbiotic relationship, something Jerry would know nothing about at this point in his life.
Ouch. Damn.
Points for
all the
truth.
flavors today, and you choose salty.
That's right. Dead Sea is the saltiest place on earth next to my bitch ass. Yeah, when we talk about symbiotes, race of... Okay, so here's what I remember, because I think my first exposure to it was the Amazing Spider-Man 361, 2, and 3, which is the first appearance of Carnage, and then I remember the Marvel Comics, or the Marvel Spider-Man cartoon from the early 90s.
Oh, I loved that.
And in that, the symbiote was something that a space expedition had picked up and brought to Earth. I believe the name of the element that they called it originally was Promethium X, but it's actually a sentient race?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
They're a sentient gelatinous people, and they're called the Clintar, and the world they come from actually shares the same name. They, in the past about 6 to 8 months, they've clarified a fair bit more about the race.
So it's like Dragon Ball, where it's Prince Vegeta and King Vegeta from the planet Vegeta.
Yeah, essentially.
Gotcha.
And what they've actually gone to show, kind of retconned a little bit. I mean, you can't even say retcon because any of this information was out there before. But they were a race of people that were created by a primordial being of the universe called Null, and he created
Like Null.
Knull.
Of course.
Yeah. So
Oh,
he.
wait, so are they actually Lintar?
I would hope so.
How do we know they're not? How do we know they're Clintar?
That's a really
Lintar?
good question. They may actually just be Lintar.
Maybe it's a silent K. Yeah.
Silent K. So he created them to actually deal with the growing celestial problem. And if anybody knows from Marvel Comics, the Celestials, I think we've talked about them before, giant peoples that create worlds and are incredibly powerful. Well, he was pissed off because he was happy with a universe full of nothing. Mm-hmm. So he created them to take out the Celestials. They didn't necessarily want to do that. They were actually a rather benevolent people. And so eventually...
I'm still pissed at my parents for making me.
Right, exactly. So is the state of Colorado.
That's because my dad doing some fishing on someone's land.
Right. So they actually came together and formed a planet as a prison around Null, and the Clintar word for Clintar, or the Clintar word for cage is Clintar.
Naturally.
Exactly. So
See,
Clintar is
when this kicked off and you said they were a sentient, gelatinous, being, I thought I could relate. But now it's just beyond all understanding.
Yeah, but they do have a section of their populace that is rather undesirable because they after an interaction with Thor and some of the Asgardians, they get an inclination as to what honor is and what a code is to live by and to be good. Unfortunately, some of their populace disagreed, and so they would take on a host that allowed them to act against that, and they were usually kicked out.
Okay, so as far as my knowledge, the first appearance that we have of the symbiote is that Secret Wars number 8.
You know what? That's what most people think.
Because that's when the suit came along, but we didn't know it was a symbiote at that point.
Actually, the suit that is the first appearance of the suit, but it's not the first appearance of that is the first appearance of the suit. But we actually get a glimpse of a full reveal of the suit. We actually get a glimpse of the black suit like 4 or 5 months prior in Amazing Spider-Man number 252.
Oh, okay.
You actually see it there first, but it's not in its full, like with the white emblem on its chest and everything.
So it's kind of like the same way as we see Doomsday in the containment
suit, and then eventually see him out of it.
Doomsday.
Yeah,
the containment, yes.
The containment, yes.
So because I was gonna say that was something that when it came to the Spider-Man series in the 90s. The symbiote was just brought to Earth, because it hitched a ride on a shuttle that was coming back, and I think that was because in the comics originally, Peter Parker gets the black suit, the symbiote. After Secret Wars, he has a new suit made for him, but the person that makes the suit is tricking him and gives him a symbiote.
Whoa.
And they didn't do the Secret Wars in the cartoon. They made this other version. So okay,
you got to remember though that Deadpool claims he got the suit first in his Secret Wars.
Deadpool claims a lot of things,
and that he didn't want the suit or the suit didn't claim him, and then went to Peter.
It also that's how they explained Venom being a little crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said it hitched a ride on a ship to Earth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like a NASA shuttle.
Is the movie Life a prequel to Venom?
I know that there's a theory that it is. I know that popped up. I actually watched Life a couple months ago, I think it was. I could see that argument, especially since Deadpool is in it. Well, Ryan Reynolds is.
That's fun.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to go that route.
No, they're definitely not. If they had that in mind, you could have done that.
It looks like what it is in this. Well, actually, no. I don't know if we've seen enough in the trailers for it. I know in Spider-Man 3, it was basically just a comet that came to Earth, and it gave Peter the power of jazz dancing and emo hair.
He nailed it too, though.
Right. But so what? Let me take a look here. Okay, so they are called the Clintar. They're from the planet Clintar. Clintar stands for
Cage.
Cage, or means cage. we saw them when Parker got his suit or was tricked into his new suit, and then, is there anything to add to that whole thing about the suit at the end of Secret Wars that he was given? Or
No, I mean, Peter has it for a while, but then it starts to Peter Parker has it for a while. Then he starts to not be so goody two shoes Spider-Man. And he doesn't.
Yeah,
and he
first he
recognized
didn't
that
know.
he doesn't.
Yeah.
He didn't understand what was going on. He was stronger.
Yeah.
He was faster. He had
Yes.
some new abilities and whatnot.
but
But
he was getting savage, and he was becoming a bit of a dick.
yeah, he was
So-
beating the hell out of people.
What exactly is it doing to its host?
So they do have. It's very the relationship
Whatever
between that
it
and the
wants.
host. Exactly. It is a symbiotic relationship. The symbiote actually needs a host to be able to get her, do most of its getting around and to eat and fornicate. But what it's benefiting the person, its host, is okay. It's making them stronger. It's making them faster. Giving them all sorts of abilities. So that person can benefit from that. However, most of the Clintar that we've seen, pretty much all of the symbiotes that we've seen, have had more or less negative effects on their host, at least on their psyche anyway. It feeds, a lot of them feed on the worst
Anger
part of,
and bloodlust.
the worst parts of their personality.
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, Eddie Brock was already kind of a jerk to begin with, and
Mhm.
Cletus Cassidy, who became Carnage, was a serial killer. So it's kind of hard for him to get any worse.
Yeah,
But
and-
speaking of, so we get the suit attached to Peter Parker. He runs around New York as Spider-Man in a black suit. He's getting stronger, he's getting faster, but he's also getting more savage and sort of alienating the people around him. And then he loses. Did he lose the suit, or did he separate himself from it? I thought he separated himself from it. Right?
He separates himself.
Doesn't he
Bell
learn
tower?
how to do that from Reed Richards? Doesn't he?
I
let
think
him
so.
know?
Yeah, I think Reed Richards was the one that tells him, "Hey, what you have on you is actually alive,
Yeah.
and it's having an influence on you, and you have to separate yourself from
Yeah.
it."
Okay, gotcha. Now,
And that's
I
when
remember in the
bell tower-
movie, I think they actually got that right from the comic. He separates it from himself because he notices that it's very vulnerable to sonic frequencies,
Mhm.
and he goes into a church bell tower. And while the bells are ringing, or he rings the bells, which puts the Venom symbiote in an inordinate amount of pain. Now,
Are they all sensitive to?
yes. Well, I thought they were. Aren't they?
They are, but
and electricity. in some
heat,
of them.
heat,
That's
sonic
what
and
it
heat
said.
weapons. Venom very much is. His children, which we're going to get into here in a little bit, his children are less and less so the more you go down the line. Carnage isn't really it's to a much lesser degree, and Toxin really isn't at all. The other 5 children of Venom have varying degrees of it.
It always occurred. Yeah, I mean, it always occurred to me that when it came to dealing with the symbiotes, just call him Black Bolt.
Right.
then-
What are they gonna
Yeah.
do?
So, question. I don't know if this is something that's known, but is Peter is Peter the first host?
The
For
first
Venom?
host for that particular symbiote. We learn at one point that Carnage was afraid of the symbiote he was going to give birth to, and he wanted to kill it because he was afraid that the one that he gives birth to is Toxin, but he was afraid of it because, hey, this is going to be the 1,000th symbiote in our line, and it could be a complete monster, a complete psychopath trying to eat and kill everything uncontrollably, so he wanted to kill it, but ran into some issues because during the birthing of it, he was too weak to kill it, and then Venom steps in saying, no, I'm going to protect it, and I'm going to try and raise it to be my sidekick.
Okay.
And Toxin is far stronger than both of them. And that's the other thing is, as the symbiote lines progress, the newer ones become even stronger. Because like Carnage could take on Spider-Man and Venom.
At the same time. Yeah.
Toxin was able to beat Spider-Man, Carnage, and Venom at the same time.
Yeah,
So
it seems like they really don't like their offspring.
So then, do the symbiotes? Do they ever okay? So they take over a host, but do they ever gain any type of, I don't want to say abilities, but do they gain something from that host so that if they were to ever leave that specific host and go to someone else, they kind of
Memories.
carry over? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
because Peter's
Go ahead.
Spider-Man, so of course he has extra things about him, extra attributes, I should say. Did it carry over?
genetic memories.
Yeah, in that way, not really.
No, they actually do.
Well, I mean, Venom did get any of the abilities of Spider-Man. He got his memories.
He got his memories, and actually, what Jerry was talking about earlier is the first actual. Chronologically, they show one of the first people that Venom took over was a Kree, and he got any shape shifting ability from that Kree.
You
Oh,
can't
sweet.
shapeshift. Scrolls can.
Skrull, sorry, not Kree. Skrull.
Okay. Blue versus green.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so Peter Parker is tired of this thing, rings the bells, and coincidentally, at the same time, Eddie Brock's in the same church.
Mhm.
And he's, as again, another thing they got right in Spider-Man 3, which is a short list, he is praying to God to kill Peter Parker.
Yeah.
He's not saying he wants God to give him the ability to kill Peter Parker. He wants God to kill Peter Parker.
Which
if
makes-
you can ask God to let your football team win, why the fuck not?
Right.
Which makes Eddie and Venom a good pair for each other, because they both, one hates Spider-Man, one hates Peter Parker, one in the same, but
Now,
it's pretty awesome.
in the research, did you guys ever figure out where the beef between Peter Parker and Eddie Brock came from?
Yeah, they were just because they were both photographers,
Mhm.
and Peter had the edge of being able to get the really awesome pictures of Spider-Man all the time
Because he cheats.
because he cheats.
Yeah,
But
sure.
Eddie Brock was trying to do his business legitimately. He
Yeah.
was trying to get pictures of Spider-Man, but couldn't get these great ones, so he was missing out on work.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and Eddie Brock started blaming Peter Parker for everything going wrong in his life. Him getting the cold was Peter Parker's fault.
Well,
like-
because I think Brock also lost a girlfriend and
Yeah.
blamed it on Parker. I mean, literally,
Got
at some
evicted
point,
from his house because he wasn't getting paid for his photographs, so he was very much anti-Peter.
Okay, but that makes sense. If you can't make a living
Yeah.
and it gets evicted, it traces back to, and that is Peter's fault. And then, once we have, does the symbiote, when it's attached to Peter, identify as Venom or no? I didn't think it did.
Yes,
It calls itself Venom?
Yeah, that's
When
what
it's attached to Peter?
no.
Okay,
It does
so-
not. It didn't have its own voice at that point.
Okay, so then
So it's just a
Peter,
black suited spider.
Yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much, yeah. So then Peter's in the bell tower. Boom! Bells ring. Brock's in the church, praying to God to kill Peter, and lo and behold, the symbiote finds Eddie Brock and merges with him, and that's when we get Venom himself. And before we move on to Venom, we'd like to remind you all that if you have any questions, comments, or ideas for any upcoming episodes, don't forget to call the Nerdsplain It helpline at 805-669-7230. Before we go into the history of Venom proper, let's go ahead and do a nice little segment we like to call Kid.
Wookie, how's your kid?
She's good.
That's fantastic. Join us next episode for another exciting episode of Jerry's Kid. Back to you, Dave.
I hope you guys are aware that when you name this segment, I still bleep that out with a Wookiee sound. So it's really confusing
Yeah,
to
see,
everyone
then we don't
else.
get the sick and dying kid joke in there.
Yeah, that's what it's
so
for.
You're just stepping all over.
It was a
Yeah.
Now he's just some dick. We're asking
told
about
you.
we're asking about his dog. All right. So now that we've caught up with Wookiee's child, let's talk about Venom. Yeah, we're just gonna rename that Wookiee's spawn.
No, we've only posted one picture of her. I wonder if we have any listeners who are like, wow, he's such a dick about his kid. The
I'm just gonna
kid
start using- I'm
shooting
just
the
gonna start
power
using stock-
outlet off the wall?
I'm just gonna start using stock photos of different children.
Yes.
Like just hello Getty Images.
Leave the watermark on it, too.
Yeah. Let's get so now we are into as far as the history, we're into Venom, proper Venom, starting with Eddie Brock. I think Eddie Brock is who this movie is based on. That's who Tom Hardy is playing. Eddie Brock, I think, is the person that most people identify with as Venom. Like if you show somebody a picture of Venom, the classic one, that's who they're gonna think of. Big, toothy, sharp-toothy grin,
Long tongue.
the long tongue, sometimes multiple heads, and just one big white spider just on the chest. Okay.
And wasn't he Venom longest in
Oh,
comic
I'm
runs?
sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm sure he was. I mean, I
Yeah.
could be wrong. So if I am,
Yeah.
by all means, correct.
yeah, because Eddie Brock became he was Venom in '88, and then Mac Gargan didn't, which we'll touch on here in a few minutes. He didn't take over as Venom until mid-late '90s.
And Angelo,
Angelo
whatever,
Fortunato.
Angelo Fortunato was before Mac, though.
Yeah,
so
but he was
it was like 2 months.
yeah, something like that, because the Venom symbiote did not care for him. And as they were swinging from building to building, the symbiote, in this, right, Jess? You were talking about, they just kind of let him go.
Yeah, he realized he was just a coward, and like midair, he was just like,
No, I'm
"Oh
done.
dear God, no!"
I'm out.
Wasn't Angelo a mob boss's kid or something?
I don't know.
I thought he was an Italian
something like
mobster's
that.
kid.
It sounds like it.
He's actually in Marvel Ultimate Alliance, because in Ultimate Alliance you had each character had four costumes that they could wear with different abilities, and so for Venom it was Eddie Brock, Angelo, Matt Gargan, and then I think Ultimate Venom from the Ultimate Universe. But anyway, going back to Eddie Brock. So where do we start with Eddie Brock? He kicks it off with feuding with Spider-Man.
Yeah. I don't remember why.
Because Eddie Brock didn't like Spider-Man, and Venom didn't.
Wait,
Edit that part out.
what was the relationship between Peter and Eddie? It could be
Professional
wrong,
rivals.
but I remember hearing that they were like childhood best friends or something like that. Is that
That's more or less Flash. Not
Yeah,
best
that's-
friends.
well,
they get
no, Flash-
hand.
Flash treated him like crap in
Yeah.
Flash
high
was his
school.
bully, right?
Flash was
Yeah.
his bully.
Yeah, Flash Thompson hated Peter Parker, but he actually idolized Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eddie Brock and Peter Parker were just professional rivals.
okay?
Yeah.
So yeah, then you have you have the Eddie Brock Venom trying to hunt down Spider-Man, which he was able to do quite easily because Venom was able to subvert Peter's spider senses, and they explain that because Venom had bonded with Peter Parker, he was and had basically copied some of the genetic information. Peter Parker's spider sense would recognize Venom as basically Spider-Man attacking Spider-Man, so it would have no reason to set it off.
Oh,
Interesting. Yeah, I always thought that was one of the things that kind of made Venom particularly dangerous, is that Spider-Man would have no idea that he was coming. Another thing that we got with Venom when he merged with Eddie Brock is that's when we started to get the thing where Venom liked to eat people.
Yeah.
Organs, I don't know if it was just strictly brains to start with, but organs. I mean, he literally liked to consume human bodies.
Yeah.
Live ones.
Throw some hot sauce on it. Why not?
And this segment is brought to you by Frank's Red Sauce. Frank's Red Hot Sauce. I put that shit on everything. Sorry, I put that shit on everyone. And then we get into, we have the first of many epic showdowns. Because, oh my God. I think if you ask somebody to name off Spider-Man villains, one of the first three they're going to name is Venom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll name Green
Right.
Goblin. Maybe they'll name Doc Ock. But you can almost guarantee they're going to say Venom. I mean, this is an iconic villain for Spider-Man. And so they've fought a million times. But then eventually, somehow, Peter convinces Eddie and Venom to get out of Dodge and go to San Francisco. And that's where we get the Venom Lethal Protector storyline, where we see the first inklings of Venom becoming a good guy.
Which, to me, it seems like that's kind of where they're going with the Tom Hardy flick.
Yeah.
Is because you hear one of the lines you hear in the trailer is, hey, we'll do some stuff, but we're only gonna hurt bad people. And Venom says, I think we'll do whatever we want to do.
Yeah.
But I think he's trying to steer that ship more towards, all right, well, let's beat up people let's eat people who are hurting folk.
Right. And actually, I went through and read Lethal Protector a couple months ago when I thought we were doing the Venom episode, because I'm no good with timelines. And I recall that in San Francisco at the time that Eddie Brock had moved there, there were a few gruesome murders that were reminiscent of early Venom.
Mm-hmm.
which actually caused Peter to investigate as Spider-Man, which made Eddie and Venom very angry because they had a deal. Venom got out of New York City, and Spider-Man would leave him the hell alone. And then they have, sort of their brief tussle and whatnot. But I think, has Venom been sort of an anti-hero for longer than he was ever a villain?
Yeah.
He is, because it's actually in that exchange there, because that deal ends up going down in 92, and it was so at that point, Spider-Man knows how to deal with Venom, how to subdue him, which with sonic weapons and everything, and that's how he's able to get the Venom symbiote off of Eddie. Eddie ends up in jail.
Okay.
And Eddie's celled up with Cletus Cassidy. Those murders that were reminiscent of Venom because they were so savage. It was Cletus Cassidy.
I thought that was in New York though. That it joined with Cletus.
Everything. I mean, listeners out there, I could be mistaken on that, but I found that stuff for being in California.
Oh, okay.
Because for some reason Peter Parker was because he's out there for a while trying to figure out what's going on with Venom. Why is he doing this? And Cletus Cassidy, as you said earlier, was a complete psychopath.
Yeah, he was a serial killer.
Yeah,
and so this is actually a part that I know a bit about because I have these issues. I have the first, second, and third appearances of Carnage. I have these issues.
I'm a serial killer. I can relate to that.
And my cellmate eats
issues.
people.
Congratulations, Jess. You were the first person to get out of that room. First person. She's so terrified. But yeah, so while in jail, the symbiote's actually there. It's actually still with Eddie. But while Eddie's in jail, the symbiote senses the sadism and the insanity of Cletus Cassidy and kind of thinks to himself, ooh, this guy and I could have a lot of fun. And I think it's actually at night while Eddie is sleeping, the symbiote leaves him and merges with Cletus Cassidy to create a whole new symbiote known as Carnage. And while Venom was just a black suit with a white spider on it, Carnage is red and black, and in each panel it's not quite the same because the idea was that the symbiote was always moving while it was on him. It was much more fluid than anything. Oh. And that's when we started to see some of the different abilities that symbiote could have.
You get that look of Carnage because it actually bonded with his blood cells.
Oh, interesting.
And so he was actually one thing he was doing to Cletus Cassidy every time he came when Carnage came out, he's literally pulling all the blood out of him and moving around. Part of the suit that is created is Cletus Cassidy's own blood.
Oh, and actually there was a correction that the symbiote didn't leave Venom entirely. A piece of it broke off.
Yeah.
Because
it was his kid.
Once Cletus, as Carnage breaks out, he goes on a killing spree because now the symbiote is very fond of making blades out of its limbs and slashing people to death, and also doing a sort of rain shower where it fires razor sharp spikes out of its chest into people. And Spider-Man tries to stop Carnage single-handedly, and it does not go well. And he asks Eddie, as Venom, for help, and the first 2-on-1 doesn't necessarily go well either. And I remember I actually reread one of those issues a couple months ago, and it was cracking me up because back in the 90s, your comics always had a recap page. Nowadays, your comics do still have a recap page, but it's a recap page. There's really nothing on it but a recap. Back in the 90s, it was a little bit more common for that recap to be happening in scene for the first couple issues, and it would just be like the character thinking back on the last issue. And that's exactly what's happening. Peter and Eddie, as Venom, are swinging through the streets, and Peter's going, oh, God, I can't believe that, now that the piece of the symbiote is merged with Cletus Cassidy and created the murderous Carnage, I have to team up with, one of my biggest enemies, Venom. And then it cuts over to Venom, who has a thought bubble, and he's singing "Strangers in the Night." What the hell? When did Venom become funny and insane? Which actually he did in Lethal Protector. Okay, so then we have what's up?
Yeah, I do have a question. So you said Eddie goes to jail, but he still has the symbiote with him. Mm-hmm. Where?
It hides in him.
Yeah,
it goes
when Peter attacked Venom with the sonic weapons, instead of the Venom, the symbiote leaving, it recesses inside of him.
Okay.
Spider-Man gets him thrown in jail. That's while they're sitting there. And was that? Yeah,
So
Is
it
in Eddie's prison wallet.
Yeah,
so
his
it
prison
wasn't
wallet.
like Eddie's like
Wallet.
boxer briefs.
No. It would have got real Fremunda cheese down there.
Yeah.
Man, can you imagine anybody that tried to go after Eddie in the shower, though?
Oh my
Like,
god.
anybody who thought they were going to make Eddie Brock their girlfriend was in for a really big surprise.
Reminds me of
when
teeth.
when a symbiote head came out and just
Oh, also,
okay, so yeah.
you mentioned how Carnage sensed the rageness or whatever about
the sadism and the murderous
Yeah.
nature. And,
so
the
going
insanity.
back to Venom, was it because Eddie Brock was just so happened to be in the same vicinity, or did he also sense?
Well, and he was
Eddie's-
actively praying to God to murder Peter Parker.
Yeah, as we mentioned earlier, this race of beings, they're typically rather benevolent. However, there are some splinter ones that aren't that way, and they actually feed off of negative emotions and negative thoughts. So the Venom symbiote, after coming off of Peter, is basically channeling all this hate from Eddie Brock, and it's feeling hate in itself, and figures, well, that's two peas in a pod right there, and
Gotcha.
they shack up.
Yeah, and then Spider-Man and Venom ultimately defeat Carnage, albeit temporarily, because Carnage proved to be pretty popular. I mean, within less than a year of him debuting in the comics, he wound up on the cartoon, on the Fox
Whoa.
cartoon. He had figures that were out. My brother had one of them actually.
You have to remember, during this time, they were trying to make toys out of everything.
Yeah.
That was one of the leading factors of Spider-Man needing a new suit for new toys.
It is time for another micro segment, so
Is it?
yeah. If you have any questions about any character, any storyline, anything really comic book related, call us at our helpline at 805-669-7230. Leave your message there and we will custom make an episode just for you.
And if you'd like to fax us, too bad. Join the 21st century. We're not that big of a business.
Yeah. All right, and do me a favor. Jump on to the interwebs. Go to patreon.com. Search for Nerdsplain It. And go ahead and become a patron of the Nerdsplain It podcast. For just $5 a month, you can get early access to our episodes as well as bonus episodes that no one else can get access to. Let's jump into my favorite micro segment, where Dave tries to become a superhero. Dave,
Yes.
what you been up to this week, buddy?
Well, this week with the teaser trailer for the third season of Daredevil coming out, it reminded me of my love for the character. So this week I tried to become my favorite hero, the one I have a big tattoo of, the blind superhero Daredevil.
How'd that go?
Who said that? Alice is just losing his mind.
Mother dick.
I was going to wait as long as it took for someone to ask me how that went.
Venom has offspring?
A couple.
Offspring, Pearl Jam, Nirvana. He's got a very extensive 90s music collection.
He was a big Ramones fan there for a little bit.
How
He was
does
not
that
a Smashing
work?
Pumpkins fan.
No. Well, as we talked about earlier, there was a piece of him that separated, that joined with Cletus Cassidy to become Carnage. When Carnage is running around town doing his psychopathic murdery things, Venom picks up a scent that kind of gives off, it tells him, hey, Carnage is pregnant. Now, when he confronts Carnage about it, says, hey, you got a bun in the oven, son. Carnage wasn't too happy about it mainly because Cletus Cassidy wasn't comfortable with it because how can a man be pregnant?
He's okay with running around being called Cletus.
Right, but man pregnant, no, can't do it. It was okay for Arnold. It's okay for anybody else, okay?
Yeah.
So Carnage realizing, okay, there's nothing he can do to stop it, what he was going to do was wait till the thing was born and then kill it. However, he has little baby. Now, this whole time, Venom was trying to convince him, hey, let me take the kid in and I can raise him right. Carnage didn't want to do that. He wanted to just kill this thing as soon as it was born. Unfortunately, it took way too much out of him. And Venom showed up, fights him to a standstill, and is able to take this new baby. No, sorry, he was, I fucked that up. Let me back up. It's born. Carnage is in no shape to actually kill it. He doesn't have the strength to do it. So he actually puts it into an Irish cop named Patrick Mulligan.
I'm sorry. Can you find a more stereotypical Irish name?
It is Patrick Paddy Mulligan.
Oh my god.
Yeah,
Was
an Irish cop.
Was O'Shaughnessy not available?
Right.
Why was every cop Irish for so many years?
Yeah, especially in New York, you have Italian and Irish cops. That's it.
Yeah.
So Carnage puts it on the cop. Says, "All right, when I'm back up to strength, I'll show back up and kill the cop, and kill that little baby symbiote before it's got any strength left or strength built up." Well, so he does come back to try and kill the cop. Venom shows up. Then he fights Carnage to a standstill, and little baby has developed powers at that point, and he kind of is able to step in, scare Carnage off. Venom then go ahead and names him Toxin after himself. And he wants...
So it wasn't after the Britney Spears song?
It wasn't, because that was Toxin. He decides, all right, I'm going to get the hell out of Dodge, and I'm going to try and do good. Oh. And you don't really ever see... we've seen Toxin pop up now and again.
Wait, Toxin decided Toxin was going to do good?
Yeah, Toxin, he's just like, nope, because he can beat the hell out of Venom and Carnage at the same time, with relative ease, actually. But he's like, I don't want a part of eating people and causing mischief. I'm a bounce. And he decides to go try and do good. And this came around in like 2004 is when Toxin came around.
Oh, okay. Oh, God. I thought Toxin was from back in the separation anxiety when they had like Phage and some of those other ones.
His other 5 children.
Yeah.
Those came about with the Life Foundation, a rather unscrupulous group of individuals, which I think is actually going to play a major part in this Tom Hardy Venom movie.
Oh, okay.
Because they've announced who the villain is, and it's the symbiote, huh?
Oh, Riot,
which is one of his kids. The other 4 are Agony, Lasher, Phage, and Scream.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
So Toxin was much, much later. It was actually interesting factoid. That we haven't touched upon, and I don't think it was in anybody's notes. So there was a time in the 90s where Todd McFarlane was a writer and an artist for Spider-Man. It was actually very influential. He changed the way that artists depict Spider-Man's webbing on page. He left, and he created Spawn. We all know Spawn.
Glorious.
Spawn was originally supposed to be a Venom offshoot. That was supposed to be another symbiote.
Well,
the more you know.
The design of McFarlane he drew back in middle school.
Right. But yeah, he wanted to make that a Venom thing, and then Marvel wouldn't let him, so. Yeah. So Toxin was in 2000, something like that. 2004?
Yeah.
Was this around the same time as Anti-Venom?
You had Anti-Venom came around in 2008.
Okay, and wasn't that Eddie Brock and cancer?
At first, it was Eddie Brock. He was cured by his cancer was cured by Martin Lee, the Negative Man.
Oh,
and Venom,
who's actually in the new Spider-Man game on PlayStation 4.
Spoilers.
Oh,
he's
in the trailers.
He was in the launch trailer.
I don't watch trailers.
Oh my god. So
I like how you knew what I was gonna say.
Right. He doesn't watch
Yeah.
trailers. Martin Lee cures Eddie Brock of his cancer. The Mac Gargan Venom, which we're going to touch on here shortly, he comes across Eddie Brock. The Venom symbiote is like, oh, hey, that's my old beeps. I want to go be with him again. And as soon as he lays hands on Eddie Brock, his body completely rejects it. Mm-hmm. And his skin starts to turn white and black, and he becomes anti-Venom.
Which was a neat character design. I mean, it was basically a photo negative of Venom. It was a white suit with a big black spider on it.
Yeah, he was like a taller and like leaner.
Kind of gangly,
Eddie in that run of the comics, Eddie Brock ended up dying because of the anti-Venom.
Yeah,
so it took its toll on him.
I thought it brought back the cancer. Okay. I don't know.
It might have.
I never read it. The Spider-Man comics are not one that I've read a whole lot about, which is why I'm trying to ask a lot of questions on this one. Okay, so you mentioned Matt Gargan. So speaking of which, Jess, Greg, did you have any more questions before we move on?
My question right now is the whole birth thing, like traditional birth or like
C-section.
I mean, they're a race of booger people.
Are you being facetious?
No,
yes.
they
yes. No, they didn't C-section.
Because I literally
was C-section a symbiote out of a man's uterus. Because guess what? A man's uterus isn't a thing.
Because I mean, like, did he just like spit off of a piece of him on?
Pretty much
went on someone else.
Yeah, kinda. They're a race of gelatinous goo.
You ever seen a Gremlins movie?
I don't remember Gremlins movie.
Gremlins, like Gremlins or Gremlins 2.
I don't remember.
You never saw
the movie. I mean, I've seen it, but I don't remember it.
Have you ever had a cold?
Yes.
You blow your nose?
Yes.
That's the same consistency of a symbiote.
Okay. Gross.
That was the grossest. I apologize, but I needed to paint a word picture.
Have you ever heard of the human function lung butter?
Yeah. Yes. So nasty.
And that concludes our episode.
Yes.
You know what's funny?
Next week.
You know what's funny is I almost know right away that once I mentioned lung butter, House got that weird, like, smoky, sulfury taste in the back of his throat when you really have some nasty phlegm back there. You remember that weird taste that you get?
Why are we going there?
Anyway, so...
No, Jess, did you have any... since you brought up Venom's kids... Ooh, new segment, Venom's kids. Did you have any further questions?
I thought we were going to do Bebe's kids as another throwback to 90s.
Yes!
To go into a little bit of detail as far as Riot, Agony, Lasher, and Phage and Scream, there was only one female and it's Scream.
Damn.
She was the black and yellow one, which we may actually see her in the movie too, because we do see a black and yellow writhing pile of pus.
No, that's just the Steelers. Matt Gargan was formerly known in the Spider-Man lore as the Scorpion. Not a great villain. I didn't think the Scorpion was that great of a villain. He looked odd in old Spider-Man comics and the Spider-Man cartoon. It was just basically a green bodysuit with a tail that had a blade on it, but it also fired stuff. He didn't have claws.
He was fun in the PS1 Spider-Man.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think later redesigns. I think I've seen pictures of him in the new game, and it's pretty cool. Like it's something you could redesign and make better. But so Matt Gargan eventually becomes Venom. But yeah, so eventually, do we know why did the symbiote leave Eddie Brock entirely and go on to Angelo?
Brock auctioned him off because he needed money. And he knew the damage that the symbiote was causing him.
Okay, so Angelo Fortunato, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So he wins the auction, takes on the symbiote.
Yeah, and he went to go hunt Spider-Man, and that's when Venom, mid-flight, was just like, oh my god, you're such a fucking coward. Bye!
Bye!
Bye, Felicia.
Splat.
Girl, bye.
Wait, did Venom actually detach from him mid-flight?
Mid-air and let him splatter to the ground. Yeah, I had totally forgotten about that.
That's great.
It's like the cruelest action from what I've found in the research. Like one of the cruelest acts he's ever done was just leave a host
never mind murdering and eating innocent people.
Yeah, no.
On that note, how does that work? Like,
eating people?
You eat a person. is that just for the symbiote, or like is it in the host?
Like, where
I
is
don't
that
know.
going?
I don't know.
House?
Well, the symbiotes will eat them for nutrition, or they'll just eat them for fun. Now, the
Right.
symbiote just being attached to a host, it takes care of them. Like any sort of illness you get, any sort of injuries you have, as long as the suit is on you, you don't have that injury or that illness.
In the Ultimate Spider-Man video game, you ate people when you played as Venom. You had to recover your health.
Because like the Venom symbiote, it kept Eddie Brock's cancer at bay.
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't advance. There was a guy named Scott Washington of a symbiote was on him, which we can touch on. It will touch on him at some point, I'm sure, when he was because he was another symbiote called Hybrid. He was all five. He was 4 of Venom's children on one person. Deadpool at one point, in fact.
A family reunion?
Family reunion. Yeah. So
Did they fight like the last hour that they were together?
But he couldn't walk. He was a paraplegic. When he had the symbiote on him, he could walk just fine. Flash Thompson, Flash Thompson, we'll talk about a little bit. His legs were gone. Oh, when the suit comes on, he's got legs again. That's cool. So the symbiote will keep them alive, but it seems as though like the Matt Gargan Venom just like to eat people.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Was the indie comic character Haunt supposed to be a symbiote?
No,
it's just something
it looks
similar.
like one.
Yeah, it
Yeah, it
does.
just looked like one. Yeah.
Okay, so after Angelo Fortunato...
Similar powers, too.
Oh, okay. I never read it. So after Angelo Fortunato, the symbiote goes on to Matt Gargan, who was formerly the Scorpion, who I would say is B or C list Spider-Man villain. You know, if you ask someone to name Spider-Man villain,
Probably
Scorpion's
C.
not coming in.
Yeah.
Scorpion's not going to come to mind unless you're talking to a big Spider-Man fan.
Yeah.
Or a big Scorpion fan. And then we get a whole new Venom. This one is actually one I've read a bit of. This was the Venom that was part of the Thunderbolts and was around during the Dark Reign. Matt Gargan Venom, he was huge. He was a massive son of a bitch.
Yeah, it was when he joined the Thunder. They got him to join the Thunderbolts because at that point the United States government actually looked at him as a threat to mankind equal to Magneto.
Well, hang on. As Venom?
Yeah, as Venom.
Well, can we back it up a little bit?
Oh.
How did Matt Gargan get the symbiote?
Norman Osborn had told Matt Gargan who Spider-Man was.
Son of a bitch.
And he tells Matt Gargan, as Scorpion, go kidnap his aunt.
Oh, shit.
So he's got Aunt May hostage.
Dirty. Goodness.
Right. Straight up.
Very dirty.
And-
Honestly, oh, Jesus. Okay.
And so he tells Spider-Man, you go break Norman Osborn out of prison, or I kill your aunt. And in a process in there, the Venom symbiote moseys on up to Scorpion and says, hey, you want to make this really interesting for Peter Parker? Let me hitch a ride. And Matt Gargan knowing, oh, I know what you did for Eddie Brock. I've seen what a symbiote can do for somebody. Let's do this.
Okay.
And that's how that relationship starts.
Now
It was quite adversarial because Jess was doing this research earlier, and I didn't necessarily know this, but the symbiote it cannot actually make you do something you absolutely don't want to do.
So it only enhances our desires that we actually have.
Right.
Now, they feed on the darkest desires that we have, but it, like I said, it only enhances those desires that you already have. So that's kind of that's the scariest thing about a symbiote is the symbiote isn't the monster we are.
Right.
So
and it took a while for that communication between Matt Gargan and the symbiote to actually kind of even out. But when it did, it was a really strong connection between not the strength of Cletus Cassidy and Carnage.
Right.
They were basically just two peas in a pod.
Right.
They were one and the same. But no, Matt Gargan had a really good relationship with that symbiote.
Okay,
So a
Greg,
little
you sound like you had a
confused.
question.
Yeah, a little confused. So how long can a symbiote survive without a host?
It's never really said that they
I think it's
just can't.
525,600 minutes. 525,000 moments so dear.
Well, because like
525,600 minutes. I don't know. How do you measure a year? In daylights and springtimes and
Cups of coffee?
Because if it's not with a host and it's just on its own, I mean, how does it know to even go to Matt Gargan, or Matt Gargan?
I mean, because it's
it is
sentient. It's sentient. It can see. It even as a gelatinous goo, it can see. It can hear. It
it's
can
not just sentient,
communicate.
it's intelligent.
Yeah, like it's not. It's self-aware. It knows what it's doing. It knows what it wants, and it understands the world around it. And it just went on the hunt. It went looking for a suitable host. I mean, it's not gonna.
I mean, without a host, it can still attach to anything else and consume. So at some point, there may have been a Venom squirrel running around.
Yeah, I mean, in Old Man Logan, we saw a Venom T-Rex.
That's right. That is true.
We've
Where
seen
was
that.
that? Where was that in the movie Logan?
Right.
I mean, awesome.
Venomsaurus Rex.
Venom
Right.
Source.
I have a long tongue and tiny arms.
You made a Disney joke, and I'm so happy.
Meet the Robinsons was Disney?
Yes.
I did not know that. Okay, so one of the things I think that to me that really stood out about the Matt Gargan Venom, one, I really like the suit redesign. You had the black suit. That white spider, though, it creeped along his sides and connected with the spider on the back. It was a bit more, I'll use the term vascular.
Yeah.
I think it's just because of how comic art had sort of come along, so there was more detail in there than it being jet black. You saw a lot of muscle, but it was a hulking beast. The thing was huge until after the Secret Invasion, when Norman Osborn created his Dark Avengers and he needed a Spider-Man. Then it reduced itself to the size of like the Peter Parker Spider-Man, but in a black suit, and started posing as Spider-Man. And then there was a mini-series in there called Sinister Spider-Man, where Matt Gargan is supposed to publicly be a hero, but at the same time he kind of wants to kill people. Okay, so
I get it.
then eventually it leaves Matt Gargan. Okay, so and then after the Dark Avengers, Norman Osborn's version of the Avengers, when he was sort of in charge of everything, fell apart and ended with the Siege event, which was the Siege of Asgard. Thor's home was sitting over Broxton, Oklahoma, and Norman Osborn wanted that power because he's a psychopath. And so he led an all-out assault on Asgard. Stupid. Well, that didn't go well, and it led to Norman Osborn being removed from Hammer, which is what he had renamed S.H.I.E.L.D. So after that siege was over, the Dark Avengers are taken into custody, along with Matt Gargan Venom, and they're thrown into jail on the Raft, which is the superpower prison in the middle of the ocean. When they're on the Raft, the symbiote is actually forcefully removed from Matt Gargan.
Right.
Yeah. And then eventually it gets on to Flash Thompson. And the way it gets to Flash Thompson is he was just hired by the government to be a secret agent, or to be a special agent, with the Venom symbiote. So it is assigned to Flash Thompson.
Yeah, because it was their attempt at essentially a super soldier program.
Yeah.
Right, but he's only allowed to wear it for 48 hours.
48 hours, so to prevent
From bonding.
Bonding.
Why does he need guns?
because when the government was able to put basically kind of clamp down a bit on Venom's powers, it gave Flash Thompson regenerative abilities, gave him the super strength, the speed, and whatnot.
Being able to walk again.
Yeah, being able to walk again, that's kind of a superpower. But he wasn't able to necessarily grow into this huge hulking monster. He couldn't turn his arms into blades and stuff like that. So he had guns.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, it was an attempt to make it was a super soldier program.
And then eventually, the the symbiote leaves Flash Thompson. But here's the funny part: they never said how.
Mm.
It is not in the comics as to how, because there's another host after Flash. It's Lee Price, who is a member of Black Cat's gang. Black Cat is a Spider-Man both love interest and sometimes villain and sometimes associate. Felicia Hardy, I think, is her name.
Yeah.
And but lately in comics, she's become a bit of a mob boss. I think it's sort of a better the devil you know. I think she's more comfortable trying to take things over because she thinks she'll run it better. But there's a meeting between two gangs. One is the Black Cat's gang, and one is Tombstone's gang. Tombstone is a guy who, God, I hope they put into the Netflix Marvel movies, or Netflix Marvel TV series, because I think he'd be awesome on Luke Cage. He is a big MFer who's hard as stone. Just hard as solid. I think they say it's like solid granite.
Okay.
Yeah, so damaging him is very difficult. But anyway, during that meeting, the symbiote happens upon Lee Price and begs him to take him. But Price overpowers the symbiote somehow and still bonds with it and becomes this all-new villainous one. And this one has a style that's kind of a throwback to the Matt Gargan one, where the spider on the chest still kind of wraps around, but it also comes down his arms in a straight line and extends to each of his fingers, and he's got sharp protrusions coming off of each elbow. It's a really cool character design. We actually looked at it before we did this. And I think during the Flash time zone, that was the Agent Venom, and he went into space. And
I saw a figure of that that they, like a build-a-figure of that they did recently, and it looks a lot like the Asgard Destroyer armor that it had created for him. Not Destroyer, but what is the thing that Thor had to fight in the first
The
one?
Destroyer.
Oh, yeah, it looks a lot like that, but he was like the Space Knight Venom is what it was.
Oh, yeah. There's, some of the stuff with Marvel, because there's only a few things with Marvel to keep up on, and some of it gets weird. Like, for a while there, Iron Man was a Guardian of the Galaxy, and he had a weird suit, too.
Yeah, and I think today Jess had found some pretty interesting information about like when they brought Agent Venom on to the Avengers. And Spider-Man did not care for that.
Spider-Man was upset that the Avengers did not tell him that Venom was Flash.
Yeah.
So was that he wasn't necessarily upset there was a Venom on the Avengers?
Yeah, he was upset that no one told him he was Flash, and apparently, I guess their rules, for secret identities goes both ways.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then, and that's when Flash Thompson Venom goes and joins up with the Guardians of the Galaxy on the request of the Avengers to strengthen the bond there. And it's actually in that storyline, I think that was from like 2016. That's when they had the Guardians of the Galaxy find the Venom homeworld. So this is the development of that species and whatnot in the comics is only about 2 years old. Mm-hmm. And then things, I think, they're able to get the hell out of Dodge in that situation.
Well, I guess at some point the Guardians get captured. That's when that's when Flash decides to head back to Earth. Venom is encouraging it. Gamora finds them. And there's something that's tapped into his mind. So he's seeing everyone as an enemy. It's their god Null is who that is. Yeah. So they attack Gamora, and then Star-Lord subdues Venom, but Flash goes into a coma.
Oh, then that would explain why they separate.
Yeah, so the symbiote breaks out of the ship, takes the ship to its planet of origin, and that's where what's the planet?
Clintar. Or Lintar. Could be that, we're not sure. Could be that silent K.
Could be a soft K.
Soft K.
So the planet of symbiotes explained to the Guardians their origins, and I guess at that point they have decided that Flash and Venom have created the perfect savior. This heals both Flash and Venom, and from that point on, I think Flash is able to tap into the full abilities of the symbiote.
Oh.
And Venom becomes the new intergalactic ambassador of Earth and an agent of the cosmos.
Oh, good. Venom's on a cosmic scale now. That's good.
Right. Well, and then at one point, I know Victor Von Doom made an alien symbiote virus that he put into a biological weapon that he dropped on Earth, and it was the Venom bomb. It turned all life on Earth. It bonded all life on Earth with symbiotes.
Jesus.
Oh.
Yep.
Nice.
Not sure how they cleared that up, because now there's also...
OxyClean.
Because now I notice when I go pick up comics on my weekly runs, they have all these Venomverse comics.
Yeah.
So I don't really know. I don't really know what's happening with that. Okay, so
They're
anyway,
definitely amping up production.
so
with the movie.
we've talked Venom in the comics. I think let's talk about the movies. So we got this movie coming up. Well, the first time we saw Venom in the movies was Spider-Man 3. I think I want to say that was the studio that wanted him in there. I think originally
They
Sam
wanted him
Raimi's idea was he wanted the Sandman story, and that was it. And then the studio was like, "No, you gotta have Venom in there."
Yeah, because
again, toys probably.
Well, they want Sam Raimi was pushing for Sandman and the Goblin stuff because I always thought that was Hobgoblin, but it's not. It's just
I had to correct so many people.
yeah. You had to
When that
correct me
came
on
out.
that one.
You're like, no, it's Hobgoblin. It's Hobgoblin. I'm like, no,
I didn't.
no.
I mean, I didn't know, but yeah, I'm glad I got corrected, so I don't sound like an idiot. But yeah, the studio wanted Venom in there because there was the fan outcry. Finally, give us Venom, give us Venom, give us Venom, and they gave you a 15-cent raise, is what they did.
Yeah, well, a lot of people think that how they did Venom overall was bad. I don't necessarily agree. I think how they did Venom with like when it was on Peter was bad, because that's when we got the really cheesy jazz club scene and the dancing in the street, which I've heard the explanations of that where it gives Peter the confidence to try to be cool like he's always wanted to be, and that's Peter's idea of being cool is dancing in the street like that, but that's why people react to him the way they do, like he's still a loser.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people hated Topher Grace as Venom. I personally didn't think it was that bad. I think we saw too much of his face as opposed to seeing the Venom mask and everything. I wish because they CG'd it, so I wish they'd made it bigger. I wish they'd made the actual Venom
and
bigger.
and when the symbiote was on him, it was very much the same texture and so it just looked like a Spider-Man suit, but it just looked like the black Spider-Man suit. And then we didn't see Venom talk. We just heard Venom screaming a whole bunch. Anytime that they were gonna have him talk, they had it peel back from from Topher Grace's face, and Topher Grace talked and had the weird fangs in his mouth. It was Venom talks in and of himself.
Yeah, and usually when Venom is talking, it's referring to itself and its host. That's why the phrase is "We are Venom," and that's why when you hear the trailers for this new Venom movie, he's telling Eddie Brock, "We can do whatever we want." So anyway, so that was and I think that may have soured people to the idea of Venom on screen for a little while. But then, we get the announcement that, hey, we got a new movie with Tom Hardy and... Who else is in there? Michelle Williams?
Yeah.
Michelle Williams is in there. The girl who played Mona Lisa Saperstein.
Yeah.
She's in there.
She's the one that couldn't say symbiote correctly.
Yeah, in the first trailer. Honestly, my reaction to that first trailer, that drove me absolutely insane.
That wasn't even the first trailer. The teaser we got like a year or so ago, and it was just Tom Hardy on a gurney going.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, Woody Harrelson's in it too.
Yeah. See, and they have not announced what role he's playing.
I think a lot of people are really, really, really hoping he's playing Cletus Cassidy.
Yeah.
I think that's what I know a lot. I've read a lot online. People are like, oh man, he makes such a good Cletus Cassidy. I'm like, he would if he's channeling Mickey Knox from Natural Born Killers.
Yeah, and he has said he has signed up for a couple of Venom movies, so that lends credence to we could be if this one does well, we could get Carnage before too long, and seeing all that going down in one movie would be pretty. I mean, Venom and Carnage are very, very cinematic characters with their tendrils and the drooling and the tongue.
And Woody Harrelson has a good history with the director of Venom too.
Yeah,
I think they did Zombieland together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
See, and I think that'll be their their stinger at the end will be a Carnage tease.
Yeah.
And then there's the other guy who appears to be the bad guy at the end, Riz Ahmed, who apparently was in Rogue One.
Yeah.
Who is Bodhi Rook?
Does he play Ray?
He's the one they're trying to rescue from Jeddah.
Oh, gotcha. He's the pilot. He's the Imperial pilot that went crazy, or had lost him. Oh, because of
the slug. Thing.
Yeah. The mind reading, whatever it was.
Everything always connects to Star Wars.
The mind reading plot device.
That's why I'm here.
That's going to drive me nuts trying to think of what that thing was called. Okay, so Jerry doesn't watch trailers.
Nope.
I do.
I watch teaser trailers because it's usually 10 to 30 seconds, and they can't spoil a whole lot in that.
53 in the case of Daredevil Season 3.
See, I didn't watch that one.
It didn't spoil anything.
There's nothing.
It's literally...
It's him sitting in a confessional. Now, what they have done, and I like this, and this is getting off topic, but the Daredevil, Netflix Daredevil Twitter feed has been sending out random Bible verses.
Oh, cool.
Not the actual verse. Like, they're putting the book, chapter, and verse. Yeah. That's it. They don't put the verse is. So it's like a biblical scavenger hunt. So I've watched the trailers for Venom. I've seen the ads that pop up on Facebook. I've seen a couple of the TV spots because we're getting closer. It comes out on October 5th.
Yeah.
Greg, do you have any intention of seeing Venom in theaters?
Yes.
So what is it that's pulling you in?
Okay, so this is kind of weird, but I kind of have a question to this answer too. Like, I'll ask the question first. Do you feel like Venom is? I guess the question is, why is Venom so popular to where they used him in like for a film, right? Because you have a whole bunch of Spider-Man villains, if you will, but he's actually getting his own film, so obviously he has to be captivating enough for them to even spend the millions of dollars to make this movie, right?
My theory is that people like anti-heroes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
My theory is that people like heroes that will kill.
Yep.
Because
Suicide Squad.
Because they see all these heroes all the time that are capturing, but then those villains get out and create more trouble, and it'd be just much easier if they killed them.
Yep.
So I think people like the idea of anti-heroes, and it might play into a certain power fantasy that some people have.
And it sells well too. Look at Deadpool. Look at Suicide Squad movies. They sold well.
Yeah,
so it makes sense they would want to do something like that.
Yeah, but if I had to say why is it so popular, I'd go the social psychology route of people just like anti-heroes.
Yeah, and like I said, Venom is a really cinematic character. Big, he just looks cool.
Yeah.
So would you say that since they're not going to have a Spider-Man film anytime soon? Well, I mean, I know they have film coming too, but I mean, Venom's the next best thing.
Home. Well, they got Far From Home, and then they also have Into the Spider-Verse coming before the end of the year.
Yeah, so we get the animated Spider-Man movie, and then Far From Home.
I mean, I will say that I'm more excited about the Spider-Verse film coming out in December, I believe it comes out, than I am Venom. But
what's got you so excited about Into the Spider-Verse?
Honestly, the fact that it's animated.
Oh, okay. So you're just a fan of
because
animation?
The problem that I have with live action films when it comes to superhero movies is because they try to make it so realistic. So
right,
limited.
Limited suspension of disbelief, I think, is the term that Bryan Singer coined in '98 or '99 when he did the first X-Men.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because they take away from the epicness of what these characters can do. I mean, I know they have some poses that you see in the comic books and whatnot, but like in terms of the action, I mean, they do a good job in what they've done so far. But I think Into the Spider-Verse is going to do something epic in terms of animation.
So what has sold you on Venom?
The fact that it's Venom, and I get to see a little bit more into the character because the little bit that I've seen in the '90s cartoon. It showed a little bit of them, but it was again on the backbone of Spider-Man. Here we get to see more of Venom without the Spider-Man, so it's going to be interesting on how they do the storyline with him and how much of it is going to be from the comic books, I guess, versus for film's sake.
Okay, gotcha.
So
I like everything. I like everything you said there.
Yeah.
It's a good response.
I'll have what he's having.
Jess, do you anticipate? Do you have a desire to see Venom when it's in theaters?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So I think between the three of us that'll live together, House is being forced into that one.
But I actually, here's the thing. Here's what's interesting is I'm more inclined because I went and saw Deadpool on my own opening day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm more. It's weird. I'm more inclined to go see a Marvel movie when it's not being done by by Disney and Marvel Studios.
When it's outside of the MC. Interesting.
I'm more inclined to go see that because I like some of their characters.
Yeah.
But if my money wasn't going directly to Marvel, I would feel a little bit better about it.
So then, Jess, what's pulling you into the theater for Venom?
Tom Hardy's
I need
abs.
to darken my soul a little bit, so it's more of a
You
tutorial.
do you know the house you live in?
Yeah, I mean,
Guys, I'm making progress here.
We can start torturing rats with a hacksaw in the bad room.
No.
Oh.
Greg, please
Greg,
ask
what's your
me.
question?
what's your question, Greg?
okay, so
The fans don't know what the bad room is, so they must be seeing it right now. Like, holy shit! What are these people? We're coming to you live from a room that has a lampshade made of people skin.
well,
All right, what's your question, Craig?
Well, one thing that I've learned from the trailers is that this is not taking place in New York, right? This is taking place, I guess, in California.
San Fran, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
San Francisco.
you guys kind of mentioned earlier about him leaving and going to San Francisco.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I guess this movie is following that storyline.
Yeah, the
But-
Lethal Protector.
I'm
that's
going
kinda
with
what we're
loosely
thinking.
based on.
Yeah.
Okay,
Inspired by.
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, so then I guess going back more so than to the comics, in terms of like the offspring of Venom and whatnot, all of those characters are still in New York, correct?
No, they were. I can't remember where the Life Foundation stored them.
Okay.
It looks like I said, for this movie, it looks like at least some corporation or government agency that may sub in as the Life Foundation has done something to manufacture other symbiotes, whether they got them from Venom or not.
Okay,
That
because
name
my
of-
question was that like does like characters like Miles Morales, like does he? I know this is kind of not really in regards to Venom, but does like Miles ever fight any type of symbiotes?
Yes, but okay, you have to remember Miles exists in a different universe.
Not anymore.
Miles,
For
well,
the most part.
originally Miles exists in the Ultimate Universe where there is no Peter Parker. Well, there's a Peter Parker, but it's a different universe, so it's a different Venom with a different origin.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that's in the Ultimate Universe as opposed to what's known as the 616 universe.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's not really fair to include those versions.
Just dawned on
of
me
symbiotes.
it just dawned on me that name, the Life Foundation, that sounds like a group of people who protest outside of Planned Parenthood with picket signs that feature the face of a 3-year-old that says "I could have been a doctor."
But in this case,
I actually
it's
called
a
that-
3-year-old with the face of a baby and the body of Venom.
I actually called that out one time. I was driving down 94, and there were people outside of like one of the churches, and you could tell that the picture on the picket sign was a 3-year-old, and it said "I could have been a doctor," and I'm like, "That kid's 3. That's murder." They did
Still
not.
good, champ.
They
I
did
believe
not
in you.
react well to that. They were
Fight the power.
They were fucking pissed. I've tried so hard not to drop F-bombs this episode, but that's the only way I can express how mad they were. Jerry, so Venom in the theaters, yes, no?
Yeah, just because it's Tom Hardy in a leading role, and
Mhm.
I like him as an actor. So the more money he gets in big roles, more
Right.
small roles he will probably get.
Okay.
I
But you
like him
hated-
as
I mean,
side
you hated
characters.
Warrior, you hated Lawless, you hated...
I loved all of those.
I'm
What?
messing
Yeah,
with you.
yeah.
I saw
Warrior's
your face.
But he
fantastic.
hated Star Trek Nemesis.
Well, yeah.
I saw your post
Better
actually
start.
about Warrior. I was going to comment on that. I saw that in theaters, and I was really blown away how that was basically Rocky for MMA.
Yeah.
All right, we are running out of time, so we'll wrap here. House, Venom theater, yay, nay?
Well, yeah, I'm going to go on a date night.
Okay.
That's you guys. I'm going to sit right in the middle, have my popcorn. Got my dick in that popcorn.
There we go. I can't
First
have
one to the
popcorn.
bottom wins the prize.
See,
gonna
that's
be-
really awkward to do when you're by yourself in the theater.
That's gonna be. Well, I mean, I can't have popcorn anymore, so. Someone
Is
else is
butter
winning.
considered a flavored lube?
It is in now.
Depends on how hard you go.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and then for me personally, yes, I think I'll end up seeing Venom in theaters. Not when I'm rushing to go see opening night, I don't think.
$5 Tuesdays.
Or $5 before noon.
Yeah.
Or $5 before noon on a Sunday or something. Then yeah, probably. The big draw for me is not necessarily the character. It is Tom Hardy. I'm a big Tom Hardy fan. I think I liked him as Bane. I don't care what anybody says.
Do we agree on something when it comes to movies?
Dude, the only thing
one of you has to change your mind.
Dude, the only thing that we typically don't agree on when it comes to movies is horror movies because you're
true.
wrong.
And sci-fi movies.
That'll be an argument for a later episode.
Yes.
Blade Runner,
All right.
extremely overrated.
Oh, go to hell. And then watch 2049, which will probably make you feel like you're in hell. All right, so that wraps it up. I think we've gone a little bit over time, but Jess will probably fix that in post. Again, if you have any other questions, you have questions about Venom or questions about any other character or an episode you want to hear us talk about, don't forget, dial the helpline, 805-669-7230. For Nerdsplain It, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dave. Greg?
See you guys.
Jess?
Bye.
Wookie?
Rock on, guys.
Take care, and we'll see you next
Bye, nerds.
issue. Give us your money, all that you've got. Give us your money, or Wookiee's child will get shot.
Oh. Not
and,
wrong.
and just remember, every dollar that you donate to our Patreon is a dollar that I don't spend on buying Wookiee's kid a duffel bag costume to go swimming in.
And I won't have to buy his kid a cup of coffee a day.
I'm kidding. We would never hurt animals. Well, not cats and dogs.
So,
I don't really like. Well, I mean, I don't like spiders.
Squirrels.
Huh?
Squirrels, I don't know.
let's
They're
jump
just
in.
tree
Well, when I'm
rats.
driving, I actively try to, like, if there's a squirrel in the road, I try to make sure I don't run over it. I
I just
that's
don't
more-
want it on my car.
Exactly. I think that's what it's more about, is I don't want it on my car
Yeah.
more than my regard for a squirrel's life.
Because can you
rabbits,
imagine peeling it off your car? Ugh.
Rabbits, I think, are more innocent. Like, rabbits, I'm like, no, I don't want to kill a rabbit.
There's cute movies about rabbits, not
Possums.
squirrels.
Possums can go right.
Hey,
Guys,
no.
you are killing it.
So-
You are
Old
scaring the
possums are
straights.
adorable.
We are doing a.
Let's
we are
jump
doing the
in.
we are doing the post show right now. We're discussing what animal lives matter.